All right, Kelly.
Adam, I guess maybe let's just start with now you've had a few days to decompress. It's a little more different when you're in front of the mic 10 minutes after your season has ended. But how do you feel now that you look back on the big picture as opposed to just Saturday night?
Yeah, well, I think we're all still disappointed. We all still want to be playing. Felt like we had a team that, should and could still be playing, and, it came up short of our goal. But I think, zooming out and looking at the season as a whole, I feel like, we can be proud of the steps we took as a group. The growth we showed, I feel like, a great regular season, and we rolled it into a real tough series against the Blues, and dug deep and had a lot of guys step up and find a way to win that series, and I feel like we were right there with a really good and deep Stars team. So looking at the growth of the team, the steps we took, I look at Fetz and Sambian, how they stepped up, and the growth in their game, and there's a lot of optimism that with another good summer, guys really pushing to get better, to work on their game, to find ways to improve, that we can come back next year and put ourselves in a spot to be successful again, put ourselves in a spot to go on another playoff run, and hopefully this one ends in late June instead of late May.
Other years, you probably didn't think you guys left your best out there. You probably aren't saying that this time. So can you put your finger on maybe what's missing still?
Well,
it's offense, or I don't know.
You know what, I think there's so many just lessons you learn in the playoffs about, what it takes, the different style, how critical moments are, that, I think there, like I said, a lot of growth, just seeing how difficult it is to win rounds, just seeing, kind of the depth you need people stepping up, the grit, how critical every little thing is. I think, obviously our road performance was disappointing, not being able to find a way to even get one in the playoffs. But, I think that comes down to, being comfortable with our structure. We needed some depth scoring. I had 0 points in the playoffs on the road. It's things like that where, at this time of year, depth can win you games or, lose you games. So, I think what made our team so successful this year, the structure, the defensive mindedness that we play with, the contributions from lines 1 to 4, the three pairings, that's, going to be what, propels us and, makes us a, good team again next year with, guys hopefully taking another step and seeing growth in our young players, but even our veteran players. I feel like that's where, as our organization, we've done a really good job of going back in the summer and guys coming back the next year, improving skills to, contribute to the team, and that's what it's going to take to be a contender, to be a team that's competitive in this league.
You talk about every little moment matters. I mean, we've never been in your shoes, and I imagine during the regular season it feels like you've got all the moments sorted out, and then in the first round there's one level, in the second there's more. Can you maybe put it into words from an athlete's perspective of how to get all of them or continue to be that efficient?
Well, just in terms of moments, I think, they say there's a change from, the regular season to the playoffs, but I think when you look at certain things, you can maybe get away with a bad line change or, a bad penalty in the course of 82 games, that it doesn't come back to haunt you, whereas, icing the puck or, missing a pass at an inopportune time in the playoffs, and, that's the difference in the game where, I think understanding the magnitude of games, the pressure that comes along with it, And I thought our team did a really good job of handling that pressure. Whether we were down in games or coming out, and you've got 15,000 crazy people in white, cheering for you, and you don't want to let them down. I thought, for the most part, after that first period in game one, to start, we handled things like that, and those are the moments that are important. That you can show up and be your best self, when the chips are down, when your backs are against the wall, and we came up short in game 6, but I thought with everything surrounding that day, we can be proud of the way we handled it. We got ourselves to overtime. It was just a difference of one shot. So, it's moments like that I think kind of build the belief in your team, build the belief in, the culture in this room, and, take that moving forward, and, you can double down on it.
The team has some free agents like Ehlers. As the captain, how much do you discuss that with Chevy and maybe even with the players?
That's above my pay grade. I think being Nicky's friend, playing with him for so long, all you want to do is, support him. Under unrestricted free agency, it's something that you have to wait for, and he's earned that right. But, I think I'd echo the statement of everyone in this room that we'd love to see Nicky back. He's a huge part of our team. He's a game breaker. He's great in this room. So, again, like I would say I'm like the rest of you. We're all waiting, holding our breath, hoping that, we can get something done. But, that's one of those things. That's the business side of it where, regardless of what happens, we'll be really happy for Nick. He's a great person, a great player, and whatever he decides, he's earned that right. And like I said, we'd be very happy, but we'd be extra happy if he decides that Winnipeg is, where he wants to spend the next however many years.
Adam, on that subject, time flies, and you've only got one more year left on your deal. You seem like a guy that would be a Jet for life. Is that something that you'd like to maybe address before next season, or?
Yeah, what? I love playing in Winnipeg. I've been very fortunate to be here my whole career. Drafted, played in St. John's. Came up through the ranks, and just finished my 11th year here. So, yeah, I think that's kind of how I picture, myself as a Winnipeg Jet for life. I, love the city, love playing in front of these fans, and, I think that's something that, hopefully we can, take steps towards, getting that out of the way this summer. There's obviously, a few more important pieces that, will probably get done before, but, I don't see that being an issue. As long as they want to bring me back, I'm more than happy to come back. It's, such a great place to play.
Adam, how do you describe the job that Scott Arniel did, and what were his biggest strengths in his first year as this team's head coach?
I thought he did an unbelievable job, and, I think he should win the Jack Adams, to be honest. He came in and built off of, some of the structure and stuff that Bowen's put in place, and, but then kind of had his own spin on it, made some tweaks, and I think he does such a good job of communicating his expectations, communicating with the players, so where you stand with him. He's hard on us at times, but he's extremely fair, and he does a really good job of pushing to get the most out of us. I think you look at how our team played structurally, the game plans we'd play with, the adjustments, the rebounds we'd have after games we didn't like, and I think him and the whole coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for that. They'd give us game plans, they'd make tweaks to the structure, and put us in positions to be successful on the ice. And I think as he gets even more experience, he's only going to grow in that role, and in his confidence in himself and the way he views the game. But I thought he had an excellent first season, and we're super lucky to have him as our head coach.
Adam, how emotional, and I don't know if this team needs to be even further galvanized than it already is, but tomorrow in Kitchener, it's going to be a different way to start the off season for sure, if not everybody than most, I would suspect.
Yeah, you know what, I think it's going to be nice that we can all be there for Brad's service and to support Scheifele and his family. You know, for Chipper to charter a plane to, you know, bring most of the guys, you know, the staff out, you know, it means a lot to us as players, but, you know, it certainly will be an emotional time. I think, you know, the way Scheifele handled playing that day, the way, you know, he performed was unbelievable. It was, you know, such a courageous act by him, the strength he showed, the resilience, and, you know, just to be there to support our friend, our teammate, and, you know, his whole family. It'll mean a lot to us. You know, Brad was one of a kind, an unbelievable person, and you know, we're really happy that we're able to be there to support their whole family.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.